This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
UN chief fears full civil war in Libya. World Food Programme food distribution aiding in addressing spread of Ebola in DR Congo. And Nigeria's Moi Moi Espresso eases making of popular bean cake and pudding. Hello and a warm welcome to Africa Live. I am Penina Karibe. Let's have a look at the stories lined up this hour. Traders fear current standoff between Rwanda and Uganda is urging them out of business. And in sports, Springboks Afiwe Dianchi faces ban for testing positive on banned substances. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says Libya could enter a fully fledged civil war. On the latest UN support mission report in Libya, Guterres urged the international community to work on a political solution to the crisis. Here's Adel Mahri with more.
The fighting over Tripoli is entering its fifth month. LNA forces, led by General Khalifa Haftar, are still in pursuit to forcefully enter and control the Libyan capital. This week, the UN has warned that the battle over Tripoli against its recognized government of national accord could turn into a nationwide civil war. Secretary General Antonio Guterres says if no action is taken in the short term, the already deteriorating situation in Libya could get worse. He wants the international community to engage in finding a political solution. But according to the UN Libya envoy Ghassan Salama, regional countries are fueling the war. Salama complained about the lack of unity in the Security Council to sanction violators of the Libya arms embargo, whom he says are encouraging opposing parties to keep fighting. Meanwhile, Guterres is alarmed by the presence of foreign fighters and mercenaries in the Libyan conflict. In the latest UN Libya Commission report, the Secretary General says the influx of arms in Libya does not stop. Adel Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
German Ambassador Jürgen Scholz told reporters in New York that his country is very concerned about violations of the arms embargo in Libya. Scholz was speaking in his national capacity as a member of the Security Council's Libya Sanctions Committee. The committee, which aims to strengthen regional dialogue, held a meeting in New York, the first meeting of this kind since 2014. The committee was supported by a panel of experts from 22 countries, neighbors of Libya and other regional countries involved in the implementation of the sanctions. The sanctions cover areas including an arms embargo, a travel ban and assets freeze in connection with attempts to illicitly export petroleum.
We urge all member states of the United Nations to fully and efficiently implement the arms embargo and immediately halt any arms deliveries. The only way for sanctions to have effect is through their full implementation and the determination of the international community.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the government says the death toll from the Ebola outbreak has exceeded 2,000. This comes as the focus shifts to battling insecurity in the eastern region, together with winning the trust of the local communities in the fight against the killer disease. Here's Brian Toussaint with more on that.
It is just over a year since the first case of Ebola was recorded in eastern Congo. The latest is the 10th in a string of Ebola outbreaks that have hit the Great Lakes nation, and so far its deadliest. According to government data, the number of the dead has risen to more than 2,000. To the locals, the disease is not new, but the figures tell of an outbreak of epidemic proportions.
2,000 people is quite a huge number. When up to 2,000 people die, that means there is a problem. We need to reach a level where we have to say no to Ebola and eradicate it forever. Because as the epidemic continues, it is we, the Congolese, who are suffering. We need development in Congo. We want to move on, and to achieve that, we must eradicate this disease.
C'est une situation très déplorable. It's a very bad situation because it's a scourge. Since this disease was declared in the province, it's been a year now with 2,000 deaths. That is way too much. As you know, a few months ago, this disease was declared a health problem of international concern. This means we are faced with grave danger.
The situation in DRC comes second to the 2011 Ebola outbreak. That killed over 11,000 people in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. Despite the milestones registered from the new vaccine and treatments, health teams are still struggling with the spread of the deadly hemorrhagic fever. Insecurity in eastern Congo, together with mistrust from local communities, have provided the perfect ground for the spread of the disease, a situation that calls for a change of strategy.
The most important thing for the population is to know that the number of deaths will continue to rise if the community does not become aware of the dangers, if it does not realize that there are measures to be taken in preventing other people from dying.
According to government figures, cases of infections are currently above 3,000. Neighboring Uganda has not been spared either, with isolated cases of Ebola being reported. Brian Toussaint, CGTN.
Meanwhile, the World Food Programme has been helping in addressing the Ebola problem by distributing food. Here's Jin Keo with more on that.
It's not just food to fill the stomachs, but also to save lives, literally. For victims of Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo, having food as they undergo the 21 days of incubation to know whether they are infected or not is not only comforting, but also a chance at survival. The World Food Programme has been on this call of distributing food in eastern Congo as a way of addressing the spread of Ebola.
The food essentially stops people from moving during the period when they're considered contacts and they must be followed. The weekly distributions allow people or encourage people to go to a point where they can be medically checked when they go to pick up their food kits.
The food distribution program has also seen many victims come out of their hideouts.
Distribute food to people whose lives have been touched by the disease, whether directly or indirectly as a contact. We provide logistic support to the WHO and government and other partners by providing transport and storage. And lastly, but most importantly, we provide air transport to health workers.
Due to the ongoing conflict in many parts of the East, locals are always on the move, fleeing militias that operate in the region. Faced by frustrations, locals have developed mistrust towards foreign medical teams that are helping to reverse the spread of the disease. For over a year now, Ebola has been spreading in eastern Congo. North and South Kivu, together with the Ituri provinces, are the worst affected. Jin Keo, CGTN.
The UN Secretary General is making an official visit to the eastern DRC for a first-hand assessment of the Ebola fightback. Guterres wants to express support for the teams engaged in the Ebola response. More than 200,000 people have been vaccinated during DR Congo's 10th and most serious Ebola epidemic. Containment efforts have been hindered by conflict in the eastern DRC, as well as attacks on Ebola fighters within affected communities. CGTN's Chris Chamringa joins us live from Beni for a further look at what is happening in the DRC and, of course, to talk about the arrival of the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Chris, the UN Secretary General has just arrived in Goma. What are his plans today?
Well, so he is supposed to meet with the UN staff in Goma. They have a very huge base there. Lots of officials from the World Health Organization, World Food Programme, all the sister agencies of the UN. He's going to meet them, and he'll also meet UN peacekeepers who've been helping to coordinate dealing with the rebel groups that are scattered across North Kivu and Ituri province. So today's agenda is for him to meet them and also, encourage them to continue doing what they have been doing over the past year since the outbreak was declared. Benny?
How important, Chris, is the Secretary General's visit, especially after the latest figures announced by the government?
Well, it's a very important visit because, first of all, he's supposed to show solidarity with all these UN officials who have been trying to deal with this deadly outbreak. There are more than 1,000 UN staff who have been in the DRC going in and out of the country, but they have been working tirelessly to try and end this outbreak. And so he's supposed to show solidarity with them. And secondly, he's going to also try and, champion this move to raise funds. Now the DRC, the World Health Organization and other international partners still need a lot of money to deal with the Ebola outbreak. They said they need about $300 million US. They have already got 45 million and other amounts of money in pledges, but that amount of money that they have currently is supposed to end at the end of September. So they'll need more money, and the UN Secretary General is going to use his good office, like they say in the UN, to try and mobilize more resources. Is going to meet with very important leaders, the DRC president, to help turn back the tide of this outbreak, now, which has now reached 2,000. Kanina?
Chris, you have visited some of the treatment centers and met with some of the survivors. How is the situation in Beni?
Well, the situation is very sad. Some of the survivors are trying to cope. There's a lot of stigma. People who have Ebola are seen as, ostracized by members of the society who feel that they might infect them. But there's a widespread campaign around Beni. If you go around the town, you see all these banners. There are musicians, popular musicians, singing songs, trying to educate the masses that, first of all, Ebola exists and that they should accept some of the survivors who are now fully cured. And so I've also met with people on the outskirts of Beni who believe that this disease does not exist. They're saying it was brought by the devil because of the sin that is happening here. And there are others who believe that it's a business. The international community is conniving with the companies making these vaccines to make money, because they're complaining that they have suffered for very many years at the hands of rebels like the Mai ADF, and they didn't see this kind of response. Now that there's Ebola, they're seeing so many, members of the international community coming to their rescue. So they're saying, look, these people are not genuinely interested in helping us. So there's a mix of, feelings by some of the people, but the leaders are doing all they can to try and educate them so that they can get people to treatment centers and get cured, now that they have found 2 new drugs that have been very effective in treating this disease.
And that education is very key, Chris. Thank you very much for that update. Chris Ochamringa live in Beni. Let's now head to Tunisia, where the political season is on as the country seeks to replace President Beji Caid Essebsi, who passed away in July. Opposition Ennahda Party Deputy President Abdel Fattah Mourou has launched his presidential bid. Mourou says he plans to make Tunisia the capital of Africa. Beriloro has more.
On the 15th of September, Tunisians will be casting their ballot to elect a president who will take over from the late President Mohamed Beji Caid Essebsi. And the Ennahda Party, which is thought to have the largest network at the grassroots level, is fronting Vice President Abdel Fattah Mourou as its flag bearer.
We want to give Tunisia a name throughout this continent, one that is based on solidarity, cooperation, enrichment, and permanent development. We want to make Tunisia a capital for Africa.
Despite its influence, the party has been avoiding going for the top seat until now. And the candidate is laying down his plans and dreams for Tunisia.
We must first achieve a connection between Tunisia and its surroundings. We need Tunisia to spread its arms to its neighbors, to its beloved ones whose people are also the people of Tunisia, whose interests are the interests of Tunisian people, whose history is the history of Tunisia. We are here to say that the borders that stand between us on maps have no meaning to us in our hearts.
Mourou, who is a lawyer by profession, has been a key player in Tunisian politics for quite some time now. His involvement in the clamor for reform saw him being placed under 24-hour surveillance during President Zine El Abidine Ben Ali's 24-year rule. Like most leaders in the country, he's a moderate Muslim. He will face 25 other candidates, with Prime Minister Youssef Chahed from the ruling leader Tunis being his biggest opponent. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a quick break. Coming up, Kenya's youngest environment warrior, Elian, fights deforestation. And Men for Women group distributes sanitary pads to schools in South Sudan.
À l'intérieur, bridegroom Bertie. À l'avantage à l'intérieur, Men from Seattle à l'extérieur. Anton Ruskin, Men from Seattle. Devant Anton Ruskin, bridegroom Bertie, the third man.
When you win, everyone is happy. And when you lose, you have to be accept because you get beaten by good horses sometimes. You have to be accept is a part of the game.
I'm not happy about the discipline in racing. I'm not satisfied that we are taking the actions and sanctioning those that are deliberately putting the game into disrepute.
You've always got to think positively and place your horse in the right position, judge the speed and how fast they're going and things like that, and make sure your horse is always travelling. This is it, yeah.
No one again, he can hold in guns.
Machine guns from police forces toward the protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
The Excellency, thank you very much for your time now. What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Sixteen-year-old Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg said on Friday she would continue to pressure United Nations member states to act on climate change. Thunberg, who was flanked by her US and Mexican counterparts, arrived in Manhattan after a two-week journey from the United Kingdom on a zero-carbon emissions sailboat, met with UN General Assembly President Maria Fernanda Espinosa. Thunberg is expected to participate in meetings on climate change at the United Nations in September, including the Global Summit with world leaders.
Yeah, I think this UN summit needs to be some kind of breaking point, tipping point, where people start to realize what is actually going on. And so we have high expectations in you two and all member states to deliver. And we are going to try to do our part to make sure that they have all eyes on them and they have really the pressure on them so they cannot continue to ignore it.
So on September 20th, it is the Friday before world leaders are coming into New York City for the United Nations Climate Summit. So these demands are directly at those in power who are inside the United Nations Climate Summit, and we will continue to take climate action till they hear us.
Year-old Kenyan Elian Wanjiku has made it her life's mission to plant as many trees as possible. She also wants to spread the message about the importance of combating climate change. CGTN's Wukista Nyabwa spent an afternoon with Kenya's youngest climate change ambassador.
The 9-year-old warrior hands every child a plant, and then together they head to the school farm to plant the trees. Every tree planted makes a difference. Bit by bit and in their little way, the students are helping to improve Kenya's forest cover and fighting climate change. And it all started with a school project at Elian's school.
When I was 4 years old in kindergarten,
I did a project on heroes, and these heroes included Martin Luther King, Henry Wanyoike, Uhuru Kenyatta, Wangari Maathai, and Mahatma Gandhi. So I really fell in love with Wangari Maathai's tree planting.
One tree became 10 trees and then 30. To date, she has planted over 1,500 trees. But it isn't enough. Eliane wants to do more. The planet, she rightfully believes, is under threat.
You know why we should be focusing on the future is because we should be knowing for the next generation, I think that we should be giving them oxygen.
During the One Planet Summit held in Nairobi earlier in the year, Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta shared the country's vision of achieving 10% forest cover by 2022. This is part of efforts to address the challenge of environmental degradation and climate change. It is a massive task, and planting trees is just one approach. As Eliane has gained recognition for her work, she has received invites to speak to world leaders about utilizing artificial intelligence to combat climate change.
Being able to predict the Amazon fire 10 years before it happens. Just imagine that. You already have people in place to save the forest even before the fire happens. Being able to predict a hurricane coming years in advance, and then on top of that, using technology to solve social issues.
As technology advances, so will the approaches to environmental conservation. But today, Eliane is satisfied with leading a group of students from a nearby public school in planting trees.
I've learned a lot from her, and from today, I want to plant trees too.
Like her inspiration, Eliane is doing her little thing to change the world. In her time, the late Professor Wangari Maathai founded the Greenbelt movement, which has to date planted tens of millions of trees. Her legacy lives on through young environmentalists such as Eliane, who are continuing the work that she started. Wilkisanyabwa, CGTN in Kiambu, Kenya.
All right, so Eliane Wanjiku, Kenya's 9-year-old eco-warrior, joins us in our studios to further discuss her efforts to combat climate change. Eliane, it's a pleasure to meet you. Introduce me to your friends. Who are they?
Okay, so this is Mr. Cuddles, then this is Brownie, and then this is Coffee.
Okay, so nice to meet you, Mr. Cuddles and friends. So, 9 years, Eliane, and here you are tackling such a serious topic such as climate change. Most of your peers would actually be busy playing with friends like Mr. Cuddles. What inspired you to take on this journey?
Okay, so when I was 4 years old in kindergarten, I did a project on heroes, and these heroes included Martin Luther King, Henry Wanyoike, Uhuru Kenyatta, Martin Nightingale, Barack Obama, Nelson Mandela, and Mahatma Gandhi, and Wangari Maathai. So Wangari Maathai's tree planting. So I really fell in love with Wangari Maathai's tree planting. So I initially started planting trees at home. So one tree became 10, then 10 became 30, then 30 became 50, and now I have planted 1,538 trees.
That's incredible.
Thank you.
So how has your experience been like? I mean, do people take you seriously, or do they look at you with Mr. Cuddles and think, oh, well, she's just a 9-year-old, what does she know about climate change?
No, like some people take me seriously and some people don't. Like, you know, it's who people are. So, yeah.
Yeah, but what have you enjoyed the most about your journey?
My journey, what I've enjoyed is that, how can I say this? I really enjoy like life. I mean, you know, you have good things happening in your life, and then you also have bad things. And also, every successful person is not very successful in their life. So yeah, my journeys have been nice and, you know, complicated. Yeah.
And what are you most proud of? What do you think, when you look back since when you started, these are your greatest achievements?
My greatest achievement is actually being on JKL also, and then also on TV. And then my greatest achievement is just being who I am, like what I'm going to be in the future.
Okay. Talk to me a little bit about your friends. What do they think about you every time you say, well, I'm going to address these people about climate change, or I'm going to be interviewed in studio? What do they say?
Okay, so some are jealous, like very few, like only 2, 3, or 4. And like most of them are not jealous. They're really helping me. I have one friend that really likes me, and she really, wants to contribute with me. And then my mom also likes her. So she said the dad also likes my mom. We'd make some friends, and so my mom lets me and my mom let her kind of join me in some conferences and some meetups.
When you talk to them about climate change and you explain what this is and how we can combat it, do they understand?
Sometimes they do, but not exactly, because they don't study on climate change, and they don't really focus on that. So sometimes they don't, but sometimes they do.
Okay.
I make it easy for them.
Right. So what's your message to the world?
My message to the world is plant as many trees as you can, and make it as possible, and make it as an influence to other people. Do whatever you can to at least save the world.
Eliane, it's a pleasure to have you in studio.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Eliane Wanjiku in studio with us. She's just 9-year-old, folks. 9 years old. That's quite incredible. Let's move on to Zimbabwe now. And the parliament is considering repealing a law that criminalizes willful transmission of HIV/AIDS, citing lack of scientific evidence to prosecute cases. CGTN's Farai Makutuya reports.
To try to curb new cases in the wake of hundreds of thousands of deaths due to HIV/AIDS in the 1990s, Zimbabwe passed a law that made it an offense to deliberately infect someone else with the virus. However, in the absence of science to prove the source of infection, it's now proposing to do away with the law, which has other flaws.
We have had so many cases of people trapping each other, they blackmailing each other because of... I think if they were genuine cases, there were few of them.
The law itself is broad, overly broad. So it also criminalizes women, for example, who are breastfeeding, who, despite all the attempts in trying to prevent infection through breastfeeding, it happens. So already that person is already being caught by that particular provision within the law.
But there are fears this could fuel reckless and malicious behavior.
It is still a crime. It should still be a crime because as a country we are aiming for 0 infections. So if someone willingly infects another, then they should face the consequences.
Proponents say that there are other criminal codes such as aggravated sexual assault that are adequate to prosecute willful transmitters. They also point to empirical evidence which shows that the law can actually undo its intended objective of reducing infections.
It places a burden upon a person who actually knows their status, because now they need to ensure that there's no transmission. So what happens is that you are afraid of getting tested because if you are tested, then you know. So it has actually retarded the aspect of testing. The science and also research right across the world has proven that the removal of the law itself actually promotes testing. It promotes people to know their status and reduces the incidence of willful transmission.
Nationwide public hearings on the law, part of the new marriage bill, are due to be concluded in August, after which, if approved, it will be promulgated into law. Farai Makutuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
A group of South Sudanese men called Men for Women is distributing sanitary pads and teaching school children menstrual health issues. The organization says the effort is to try and keep girls in school. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
An education for these young people in sanitary health, learning that menstruation is natural and should not keep girls away from school. Boys are included as well.
Today I feel so proud because it is good to teach most of the boys so that to encourage the girls.
The group Men for Women is urging the South Sudanese government to abolish all taxes on sanitary pads.
We're talking about if you educate a woman, you educate a nation. We're talking about our mothers, our sisters, our daughters, which are part of us.
South Sudan has one of the world's highest school dropout rates for girls. The government says a lack of information on menstrual hygiene is contributing.
The silence on menstruation should be broken. And if our men, are now joining the women or the girls to talk about menstruation, I think it is a good idea whereby now we'll be able to maintain girls in school.
Men for Women is also contributing sanitary pads to school girls who cannot afford them on their own, but it says it lacks the necessary funds to take the message and the pads to all parts of the country. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Let's now head to Nigeria, where bean pudding and bean cake are some of the most popular meals. The meals are popularly known as akara and moi moi and are rich in protein. They are made from a mixture of beans, crayfish, pepper and other ingredients. The process of making can be a bit stressful and takes hours to prepare, but one entrepreneur has made life easier for moi moi and akara lovers by cutting short the process through a product called Moi Moi Espresso. CGTN's Deji Banmas has that tasty story.
Mixing things up at a part of a home which serves as a makeshift factory. Thereafter, the packaging begins. It's the final stage in the production process of Anthea Pereto's Moi Moi Espresso, and the label on the pack clearly indicates the various ingredients that she has mixed to form her product.
I love to cook, and I know that moi moi and akara are amazing health benefits. So, and also the cumbersome, I thought also about the cumbersome process of preparing the moi moi and akara. You need to soak your beans for a couple of minutes, as much as 30 to 45 minutes, to now wash the beans, to dehusk it, and then go looking for a grinding machine, local grinding machine to mill. I now thought, no, I need to save you the stress. And that was how I birthed Moi Moi Espresso.
Anthea sold her smartphone and laptop to raise the seed capital to start her Moi Moi Espresso enterprise. And today, the product can be found on supermarket shelves across Nigeria. And because of her initiative, busy young men like Suleiman can now have their favorite meal without too much of a stress.
You know, for us bachelors, so we have to try to make ends meet to make sure that things are easy for us. So it's a way that we don't need to go to the grinding machine and do all those things. So someone has helped us to do this, and it's better for us.
Anthea's Moi Moi Espresso has significantly cut down the time it takes to make bean pudding and cake. What would normally take hours to prepare now takes minutes.
With Moi Moi Espresso, you can have your moi moi prepared in minimum, in fact, in 40 minutes, because all you do is just scoop, mix, cook, and that's it.
She came all the way to my house to show me how it's done, and since then, Moi Moi Espresso has been it.
Apart from her Moi Moi Espresso enterprise, Anthea also works as a radio presenter at one of Abuja's top radio stations. So when she's not in her makeshift factory here, you will sure find her behind the microphone.
Outside radio, I MC events, and then I also do voiceovers. Look, a little bit of this, a little bit of that puts food on the table.
But make no mistake, she has big dreams for her Moi Moi Espresso.
I wish and pray that Moi Moi Espresso will be a household brand. I also wish and see myself to be a major employer of labor, at least to take away the weight of hunger and depression from young Nigerians who are there crying, oh, no job, nothing to do and all that, and might not even have money at all to start anything.
Anthea is more than passionate about her Moi Moi Espresso and hopes to find investors to expand and scale the enterprise. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Abuja, Nigeria.
In Hong Kong, a large number of protesters are gathering in the Admiralty area and vandalizing the central government complex. Police have used tear gas to disperse a large crowd of protesters that had gathered in that area. There have been reports of incidents of vandalizing of a government complex. A petrol bomb has also been lobbed into the police headquarters. This comes as the local police condemn the violent protests that continue rocking the city for days now. Police are also warning protesters to end acts of violence and disperse immediately. Meanwhile, Hong Kong police are still looking for the suspects who attacked an off-duty police officer who was walking to a metro station on Friday night. 3 masked assailants stabbed him on the hand, back and shoulder. The suspects ran away and the 45-year-old officer was rushed to a nearby hospital where he had surgery. Hong Kong's Commissioner of Police, Lo Wai Chung, visited the officer in hospital and condemned the assault.
After an initial investigation, we've learned that he has no personal grudges with anyone. We will continue our investigation. We do not rule out any possibilities at this stage. This attack has deeply saddened and angered me. It is despicable behavior to ambush off-duty officers. We will try our best to bring those responsible to justice.
You're watching Africa Live. Coming up in business news. Traders fear current standoff is edging them out of business. And banks digitize to boost financial services and target more customers.
Africa is the nexus of enterprise, and global business will tell you why it matters.
From the mega investment projects to multi-billion-dollar mergers and acquisitions.
Africa today collects, just in terms of revenues from taxes alone, $545 billion a year. If you take 10% of that and you devote it to the energy sector, problem solved.
All this on Global Business, weekdays at this time on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Tensions are still high at the Uganda-Rwanda border, where a trade dispute has been playing out for the past few months. Restrictions on the movement of people and goods has been hampering business on both sides of the border. All this comes a week after the leaders of the two countries signed a peace treaty in Angola. CGTN's Hilary Ayasiga reports from Western Uganda.
Preparing to market her merchandise, Fiona Mumpire deals in building materials. But it's not business as usual here.
Before they closed the border, we used to sell our goods to Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, but now we are not selling anything.
And she's not alone. Other businesses are also struggling.
People from abroad are the ones who used to come for our things. They could take things, they sell, after selling, they come for others, bringing that in, when they are bringing that money. And now we are here, even the things which they took there, they are still there with money. We don't have money, we don't have, everything is worse here.
Business here at the Katuna border post is on the low ebb, even after the two leaders signed the peace accord in Angola to ease trade. Traders here are worried that the current standoff could edge them out of business. Some businesses have already closed shop, and this border post has been temporarily closed for 6 months. Cargo trucks are being diverted to Mirama and Chanika entry points. Local leaders are now urging the two presidents to enforce the agreement.
We need these borders opened as early as yesterday. Our appeal is that we appeal upon the two parties to engage once again and see that business comes back to normal.
They also want them to set a clear time frame when the borders will be officially opened, in the hope this will restore the lifeline of many businesses that are on the verge of collapsing. Hilary Ayasiga, Kabale, Western Uganda.
MTN has officially launched a mobile money service in Nigeria dubbed Momo. Nigeria is the telecom's biggest market and Africa's most populous nation. Mobile money schemes across Africa are seen as a key measure to bridging financial inclusion. One of MTN's biggest and successful Momo operations in West Africa is in Ghana.
Nigeria's biggest telecoms firm, MTN, has launched a mobile money transfer service. The new product targets those without bank accounts as the firm works on its plans to become a payment services bank once it obtains approval from the central bank.
For a country the size of Nigeria, we need an estimated 500,000 agents for us to effectively distribute financial services. And we all know, if we look around our country today, that that's a far-fetched number. And so part of what the main thrust of Momo Agent Service is to roll out a pervasive agent network that would at least ensure that we bring financial services to your neighborhood.
The success of Kenya's M-Pesa by Safaricom in East Africa has convinced investors and the industry that financial services are the next growth area for the telecom sector. This as prices for basic services continue to fall in the industry. Nigeria said last year it would allow telecom companies to provide banking services, aiming to give millions of Nigerians without bank accounts access to mobile money services.
The big problem why people don't have access to financial services is a problem of reach, right? It's not the financial services itself. But the big problem is that you have to solve the problem of reach and ensure that you can distribute and extend financial services to the last mile. What Momo Agent Service will do for those customers is that once you have an agent within 5 minutes of your neighborhood, you can have access to this rich bouquet of financial services that exist today.
MTN Nigeria was awarded a license by Nigeria's central bank in July to provide financial services. Majority owned by South Africa's MTN Group, the company runs Nigeria's biggest mobile phone network, serving around 56 million people. More than half of Nigeria's population of 180 million do not have a bank account. MTN Group appointed Rob Shutter as chief executive in 2016 to oversee the formulation of a new strategic growth plan and look for new revenue streams as competition and regulation hit profit margins. Alexandria Majala for CGTN.
South African challenger mobile network operator Cell C is in a spot of bother. It's defaulted on interest payments and that default triggered a downgrade by S&P Global Ratings in mid-August. Cell C failed to pay a $14 million interest bill that was due in July. The ratings agency said that they don't expect the company to make the payments within the 30-day grace period it was given. CGTN's Angela Kupla reports.
The big challenge facing Cell C was that there wasn't enough action taken on the competition and regulatory aspects when the challenger network entered the actual market, especially on mobile termination rates.
It was quite apparent that those were set extremely high to begin with, hobbled them, and dropping those termination rates saw an outbreak of massive price competition that consumers had benefited from. But that entrenched first move advantage of your MTN and Vodacom has meant they're able to reinvest and keep a lead that has put pressure on the challenger networks.
There's been a regulatory failure, which has precipitated market failures. So it doesn't matter, which other third player is going to come in, how deep their pockets are. If we do not fix the regulatory environment, they are going to collapse.
It's a tough business environment and disposable income is being squeezed, so consumers will look for the best deals, which places pressure on market participants.
One doesn't want to see large firms fail. What the consequences are, can be significant, but it can just be that shareholders maybe take a haircut and someone carries on that firm. We'll have to see.
The competition authorities have been working hard, making recommendations to operators to bring down the cost of data in South Africa. And that could place even more pressure on Cell C. But the consumer comes first.
A lot of those interventions are aimed at wholesale regulation or wholesale fixing of practices that might, in a sense, give challenger networks a leg up because you need means to overcome that first mover advantage and entrenched position. So I think if there's a lesson from it, we should have been acting sooner with more clarity right from the very beginning.
I think we need agile regulators to tackle these problems. It's going to be even tougher in the current digital markets because markets are going to evolve even much faster. So if regulators are not agile enough, we are going to always be left behind.
While the data inquiry is at an end and the recommendations are being implemented, the competition authorities are scratching their heads about whether they could have done things differently. I'm Angelo Coppola for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
South Sudan's government says it's working to address environmental concerns in oil producing areas. The country's petroleum minister has announced plans to send a team of environmental experts to assess the scale of damage caused by pollution in oil fields. CGTN's Patrick Oyet reports.
Wastewater is not treated and drilling chemicals are frequently disposed of in unprotected areas. Around 80% of South Sudan's oil is produced in the northern Ruweng state, and although oil production brings the country economic benefits, residents are worried about the environmental impact.
There are some diseases here that we are seeing, a generation of young people born with defects. Some are born normal, but within 2 to 3 years they develop complications, and now we have formed a committee to find out the best way to handle this situation.
Communities living in oil-producing areas say pollution has worsened since the start of the civil war in 2013. Both humans and livestock are affected. South Sudan's government now says an environmental audit will begin in early September.
This report will help us, and it will guide us, whether these are related to environment or whether they are related to other things. And this will come as a report, and we are going to use this report actually for us to even use, to use the recommendations that we'll find there, even to address some of the environmental concerns.
South Sudan's government insists it is working to address the situation, but the country's environmental regulations are weak and authorities struggle to implement them. 98% of South Sudan's budget comes from oil, and while the government says it is trying to improve environmental standards in the country, holding oil companies to account is proving to be an uphill task. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Ghana's banking sector has been incorporating digitization in its financial services. Several banks are using mobile phone applications to target more customers and market the services offered. The country is working towards achieving a cashless economy in the next 10 years to better the economy. CGTN's Nabil Ahmed Rufai reports from Accra.
Interface you would see right when you log into the app.
The digital revolution is catching on, and banking in Ghana will soon be all about the mobile phone for rural and urban, business and personal banking needs.
The mobile phone has presented a greater opportunity for everyone to be part of the financial drive. That is where we see a major avenue. So it comes with a lot of work to continue deploying solutions at the mobile level and online.
Ghana's government hopes to achieve a cashless economy by 2030. And banks have a crucial role to play. At this digital banking summit, financial experts, mobile app developers and bank managers are discussing how technology can help improve the way they deliver service to customers.
There's a lot of technology available. Basically, it's a platform play where banks will have products, there'll be intermediaries that deliver those products across the channels, and people use their phone. I mean, I always use the line, where there's a phone, there's a bank. So that phone, whether it's a smartphone or a feature phone, is the center of the relationship with the financial sector.
Joseph Yendok of Asian technology company UTAP is at this summit to introduce its electronic payment solutions to Ghanaian banks. The technology allows small business owners with a phone the ability to send and receive money.
With this device, the agent can help customers who cannot onboard themselves. You can take all the KYC documents you have, and you can see it has a camera at the back, so you can take pictures of ID cards and any other relevant document that the bank needs, so you can do that for them. And with this also, you can do the basic banking transactions for customers.
Technology will also mean fewer people coming into banks to deposit or withdraw money, cutting down banking costs. Many banks in Ghana are working towards adopting new innovations to make banking easier. But to compete effectively amongst themselves means delivering diverse services to help customers make smart decisions. Most Ghanaians are still banking the old-fashioned way, but with over 32 million mobile money accounts already operating, experts say with government support, Ghana may well achieve its goal of a cashless society by 2030. Nabil Ahmed Rufai, CGTN, Accra, Ghana.
And coming up in sports, Springboks Afiwe Dianti faces ban for testing positive on banned substances.
Africa, where champions are made, records are broken, legends are born. We're there for every goal, for every knockout, for every step of the way. Match Point, only on CGTN.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
The South Africa rugby community is reeling from the news that Star Springbok winger Afiwe Dianti has once more tested positive for banned multiple anabolic and metabolites. The 25-year-old's B sample returned adverse findings after he denied taking any performance-enhancing drugs when his A sample tested positive. Dianti now faces a 4-year ban from the sport. CGTN says Du Plessis reports.
The Springboks' departure for the World Cup in Japan on Friday has overshadowed the news of Dianti's B sample coming back positive. Coach Rassie Erasmus expressed his disappointment earlier in the week and said he was aware of the A sample coming back positive, but admitted that the World Rugby Breakthrough Player of the Year would not have made the squad due to injury.
So Apiwe wasn't going to make the World Cup squad anyway in terms of injury, because he just hasn't played rugby for the last 5-6 weeks. So that was my point of view. And I only heard that, as I said, was 13th of August. I only heard that. So, and I didn't think it was something withheld from us. I think that was when it was only made official. And I think Apiwe now came out and said himself that he was tested positive. So yeah, it wasn't something that myself, or Sorrow for that matter, tried to keep away from everybody.
The Springbok and Lions wing had initially denied any wrongdoing, but when his B sample, which was tested at the WADA accredited lab in Bloemfontein, came back positive for methyl testosterone and metendinone, both substances are banned in and out of competition, it was game over for the 25-year-old. Speculation is rife that Dianti took the anabolic steroids to recover faster from injury to be fit for World Cup selection. He now has the option of admitting to the charge and accepting the sanction, or to submit a plea for consideration of a reduced sanction. If he disputes the charge and pleads not guilty, a hearing will be set down within the next 4 weeks. It's a sad day for the sport, as a player with so much potential has now cut short a promising international career and the chance to play at the World Cup. Du Plessis, CGTN, Johannesburg.
We now cross over to Morocco. Kenya has harvested 4 more gold medals as the track and field program of the African Games concluded on Friday in Rabat. George Manangoi won the men 1500 meters final in 3 minutes 38.27 seconds to lead countryman Charles Simoto to the 1-2 in a close finish. Kenya sealed the 1500 meters double when Kwalien Jebui-Ward took gold in the women's race in another 1-2 with Mary Kuria. Robert Kiprop led his compatriots to a podium sweep in the 5,000 meters, with javelin star Julius Yego rounding off the golden finish with a winning throw of 87.73 meters.
The race went well for me today. It was the first time in my life to run against the seniors, and I ended up winning. This victory has opened doors for me to compete with the seniors. I was expecting either silver or a gold medal, but with Iguida and Suleiman in the field, it was a big challenge. I thank God for helping me to the gold.
Cote d'Ivoire is set to face hosts China in their 2019 FIBA Basketball World Cup opener on Saturday. The African side turned heads late in the qualifiers by winning 3 straight games to book their spot in the global showpiece. The Elephants last met China during the group stages of the 2010 tournament, where they lost 83-73. Cote d'Ivoire are currently ranked 64th in the world, the lowest amongst the 32 teams in the competition, but that seems to be less of a bother for coach Paulo Povia.
I think that my team is ready to play this game. We are Côte d'Ivoire. We know our weakness and our strength.
The English Premier League action resumes on Saturday, with Manchester United away to Southampton seeking a second win. Champions Manchester City are also on the road to Brighton, with league leaders Liverpool making the trip to Burnley. Chelsea welcome Sheffield to Stamford Bridge, with Crystal Palace, Leicester, Newcastle and West Ham all at home to Aston Villa, Bournemouth, Watford and Norwich. Speaking ahead of their visit to St Mary's, United manager Ole Gunnar Solskjaer joked he would welcome back former striker Zlatan Ibrahimovic, with his team facing a shortage of forwards.
He was 28, not 38 next month. It's a big difference, but Zlatan's he's had a great time here, and of course he's still doing well. It was just unfortunate that he got his injury when he got it here. So who knows? He knows my number. He never rented my house, but he was looking at it. So it's and we can speak our native language. If he's serious, I'll always speak to Zlatan.
Hull United defender Chris Smalling has completed his loan move to Serie A side AS Roma in a deal that will keep him in the Italian capital until June of 2020. Smalling joined United from Fulham in 2010 and had just extended his contract to 2022 in December. The 29-year-old made 34 appearances last season, but seemingly saw his chances of regular football reduced after Harry Maguire joined the Red Devils in July. Smalling becomes the third player after Romelu Lukaku and Alexis Sanchez to leave Old Trafford for the Italian league this month. Still in Europe, Paris Saint-Germain has picked up a third win in 4 Ligue 1 games after beating Metz 2-0. The champions took the lead in the 11th minute when Angel Di Maria scored a penalty. Cameroon forward Eric Maxime Choupo-Moting doubled the advantage with a header shortly before halftime for his third goal in 2 league games. Play had, however, been halted briefly by referee Frank Schneider midway through the first half due to a banner held up by the home supporters, which was deemed homophobic. This is the 4th such incident to occur in a French league game this season after the country's football federation pledged to crack down on homophobic chanting. In tennis news, Swiss superstar Roger Federer has said he is sick and tired of complaints that he receives a favorable playing schedule after his latest US Open victim suggested on Friday the 5-time champion gets preferential treatment. Briton Dan Evans was swept aside in 82 minutes with Federer, who prevailed 6-2, 6-2 and 6-1 to storm to the last 16, letting off a rare outburst after his victory.
You think a guy who's my ranking has any say in that?
Probably not.
Yeah, there's probably about 4 people in this tournament as a say when they play. Maybe 3.
I'm sick and tired of it. That apparently I call the shots. The tournament and the TV stations do. We can give our opinion. That's what we do. But I'm still going to walk out, even if they schedule me at 4 in the morning. So.
Ferrari has once again led the way at the Belgian Grand Prix, with Charles Leclerc posting the fastest time in second practice. The 21-year-old driver from Monaco finished seconds quicker than teammate Sebastian Vettel. Formula One Championship leader Lewis Hamilton was 4th best in the second session, coming behind Mercedes teammate Valtteri Bottas. Red Bull drivers Max Verstappen, who finished 6th, and Alex Albon struggled to impose themselves. Saturday we'll see the drivers fight for pole position ahead of Sunday's race.
Yeah, obviously not a great start for us in P1. We had a problem with the throttle, and basically lost power, and so I was just idling just with the RPM, trying to get back, and then I managed to fix it a little bit with a couple of switch changes, got it back, and then we went back out and had another problem.
Felt quite comfortable early on, and then FP2 felt a bit more difficult, but yeah, just part of the learning game. And of course, yeah, we're focused on Sunday, so that's really the main aim. Just setting it out for that, and just doing laps, as many laps as I can.
And that's it for now on Africa Live. We welcome your feedback. Send it to the contacts on the screen and follow us on our digital media platform. I'm Penina Karibe. Thanks for watching.